Welcome classic rock fans to a new series of videos where classic album covers are excavated and explored. I've decided to call these Beneath the Covers. Yes, the piff and pun of it amused me as well. In these videos I wish to unpack the iconography of some of the greatest album covers of the 20th and 21st century. And for the first episode I wish to pick clean the bones of Nirvana's Nevermind from 1991. And this album cover is not only synonymous with this band, it has come to represent the very decade in which it was unveiled to an unsuspecting public. The album cover, of course, was created by Robert Fisher and now languishes in the Museum of Modern Art, if I'm not mistaken. And the image of the child underwater, or the baby underwater, is one that interested Kurt Cobain from the get-go. In fact, they browsed through umpteen images of water births or children being born underwater, but unfortunately those images were far too graphic. Not to mention, I imagine the pool got a bit murky as well. And the one image that they both took a shine to, the Stockhouse actually wanted something like $7,500 every year for them to feature that image on their album cover. It was Cobain that actually liked the idea of a baby swimming with a fish hook. I mean, the fish hook obviously adds a degree of menace to that whole picture. Then they were to put a slab of meat on the hook. Then there was the idea, of course, of putting a CD on the fish hook, representing the primal and innate appeal of music. But to my mind, that just wouldn't have been sinister enough. Eventually, the idea of the dollar bill was floated, no pun intended. Fisher goes on to employ a photographer named Kirk Weddle, I think it was. And it was arranged that this photo, they got umpteen parents with umpteen mewing babies, of course, at the Pasadena Aquatic Center. And of course, they all took it in turns of getting in the water with their children and having these photographs taken. Of course, they took umpteen photographs of various different children swimming in the pool, but it was one that was just perfect. It was the one that ended up on the album cover in terms of the baby's expression and reaching out as if it was going to try and grab the money. And if you look at the image of the baby on its stomach, you can see the handprint of the parents where they just released the baby a split second before the photograph was taken. Of course, the baby in question was 4-month-old Spencer Eldon, who was plunged into the chlorinated depths and instant notoriety for having his wiener on a very famous album cover. The fish hook and the dollar bill, of course, were added later. The record company were not happy with the album cover. They felt it was just a little bit too explicit and looked for an alternative album cover. Kurt Cobain obviously objected to this. He did suggest that if they wanted to, they may put a sticker over the offending appendage, and that sticker would have to read, if you're offended by this, you must be a closet pedophile. So I think the record company conceded and just went for the album cover. A few months after the famous baby shoot, of course, the whole band were photographed by the same photographer frolicking about underwater. Spencer was paid $250, which is not a bad rate for a baby. Of course, you can buy a lot of rusks with $250. It was actually the standard rate for a model, a no-name model, as they say. And of course, he was later presented with a triple platinum disc by Ed Rosenblatt, of course, president of Geffen Records. The shiny disc is still on the family's living room to this day, apparently. This image, of course, has been interpreted in many ways by different people. Many see it as a commentary on the values of modern America. Some have seen it as a poke in the eye to that kind of 60s generation, of which most of the fans of this band, their parents would probably have been a part of. Of course, none of them are particularly interested in listening to Timothy Leary anymore. They're all probably accountants and lawyers. Some have even suggested that the image itself is a metaphor for the inexperience of the band, hooked by the big corporations, the music industry, possibly. But there's no doubt that the image of children is very evocative, especially when juxtaposed with images of corruption or a corrupted world. Of course, in the 60s and 70s, images of naked children abounded everywhere. They were seen as the ultimate icon of freedom, purity, and that natural expression of something unaffected by the constraints of the material society. Until you get to the Scorpions' Virgin Killer album, where it all gets a bit nasty. But certainly water is a powerful and potent symbol in literature and art. Especially in literature, of course, it's often Charles Dickens in Dombey and Son uses the sea as a representation of death and the permanence of what comes after life. Renaissance writers and Jacobean writers used water as a symbol of femininity and insanity, which is why, of course, poor Ophelia just has to drown. Of course, the caretaker title for this album is going to be Sheep. The idea, the sort of people who are going to buy the record, this unthinking herd, reminiscent of Pink Floyd's Animals, perhaps, as I call it, Waters' dystopian beast fable. But it's certainly an image of an unthinking populace. I know the band was somewhat irked by the public's reaction to Desert Storm, Operation Desert Storm. But as the recording continued, Cobain grew somewhat weary of the title and decided he wanted to call it Nevermind. Nevermind was a word that perfectly summed up his own personal philosophy. That's like that kind of pathological ennui, if you like. But I think more poignantly, it's he was a big fan of the Sex Pistols, and he loved the title of the album, Nevermind the Bollocks. The back cover, of course, is a collage put together by Kurt Cobain, including a rubber monkey, images from Dante's Inferno, adverts from a supermarket, adverts for raw meat, and also pictures of diseased vaginas. I mean, how delightful is that? Kurt Cobain has noted that if you look really carefully, there was actually an image of the band Kiss standing on a slab of beef. Gives a whole new spin on the term meet and greet, I suppose. For the subsequent anniversary editions of this album, the subject of the photograph, Spencer Eldon, has often recreated the image. I think on one occasion he even offered to go commando for the 25th anniversary, I believe, but he was persuaded to keep his shorts on. Thank heavens for small mercies, eh? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you do like my musings on music, check out some of the links I've put below for ways you can support my channel. Other than that, I'm just going to say please click like, subscribe, and check that bell so you get notified of any future uploads. And more importantly, please do stay safe and keep listening.